Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Tech Beans. Today I am excited to welcome Sanjay Singh, a seasoned expert in DevOps and InfoSec with over 20 years of experience spanning multiple industries including fintech, retail, game tech, cloud, AI and so much more. Sanjay has been instrumental in leading high-performing teams and driving innovation through a DevSecOps, that is, development, security, and operations mindset. His extensive career includes leadership roles at renowned companies such as Cisco, 𝐒𝐚𝐲 𝐒𝐢𝐧𝐞𝐟, where he spearheaded initiatives while achieving impactful results for his organization. Currently, as a tech leader at Fineshift, Sanjay continues to shape the future of tech by integrating cutting-edge perspectives into DevOps and InfoSec. He is also an active speaker and a respected voice in the DevSecOps community. Welcome Sanjay, great to have you here today with us.
Thank you, Pavlin. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, so let's start. Let's begin with the first question. Sanjay, your career spans over 20 years across various industries like fintech, retail, technology, etc. Could you briefly walk us through your professional journey so far?
Right. So I started my career, as you know, a little over 2 decades ago. And when I started, those days, there was nothing called DevOps, there was nothing called cloud, there was nothing called, or maybe very little about security, right? When I started my career. So it used to be, even when you go to internet, right, those days, by the way, there was nothing called Google as well, right? So it used to be a plain, simple HTML information-based websites where you go to the website to gather some of the information, right? I don't recall there was any e-commerce or any transaction-based, websites or services or applications. So it used to be very plain and simple, and in fact, that itself was a huge thing, right? When the internet era kind of started. From then to now, at least I have seen a huge transformation, right? Where, as I said, it used to be even for our type of people where it used to be very, very manual in nature. There were very few tools available in the industry or the market, right? And since the scope itself was very small or very limited, whatever we had during those days, we felt that's enough to run the business, right? And then we started seeing a lot of adoption, and internet was getting involved in almost everything that we did, right? Starting from banking to any retail kind of business, any gaming, any of those things that even the booking the tickets, ordering food and whatnot, right? We have seen the entire transition. I have personally seen that kind of transformation or transition in the industry where even on the tech side, right? Whatever we did, right? Later we felt, hey, that's not enough, right? And there is always a newer technology, newer ways of doing things, right? So the thing was, you keep learning new things, and by the time you learn, you try to adopt, and you adopt something. Something has already changed in the tech industry. So it's like you always keep yourself up to date to make yourself relevant in the industry, because otherwise, if you don't do it, you become very outdated very soon. And as I said, over a period, especially last 10 years, the little over 10 years ago, the DevOps was still a new thing, right? Lot of companies maybe even felt that, hey, whether this is going to be, possible or not, where the DevOps becomes a reality. But then, we started seeing a lot of adoption across, especially in the software development lifecycle, where the DevOps became, the reality. And we all felt that in the absence of DevOps, the quick adoption of any tools or technologies or serving your customers may become challenging. So there again, the adoption became very high. And then little later, in fact, in last 4 or 5 years, we have seen a huge adoption of even the security, right? And now DevOps became more like, DevSecOps, where earlier it used to be DevOps first, and you push the code to production, have your customers use it. And then you think about security, right? So security used to be a kind of last thought, or I'll do it later type. But then if you see now, the security has come between Dev and Ops, right? Which is now DevSecOps. And I call that as, shifting left. where, earlier it used to be after DevOps, you think about security. Now security is, moving towards left side. Maybe later it may become SecDevOps, maybe, where you start with security. Anything or everything that you do, you think about security first and then do the rest of the thing. So that's my 2 cents of it.
As we grow, we see how important security is becoming, and especially in this digital age where you have ample of data, it's obvious that security will take more importance every day. Okay, next question. What first sparked your interest in the field of DevSecOps, and how has that passion evolved for you over time personally?
Yeah, so when I started my career, I was a developer, in fact, right? And then I felt about that, hey, once I write the code, how it is being used by the consumer or my end user, right? And somehow the later part attracted me more, right? Where you are ensuring that anything and everything is being deployed for your end users' consumption. You are ensuring that it is available. You're talking about reliability, availability, security, and whatnot, right? So that kind of role attracted me more, and then I felt very passionate about. Then I picked up this particular role where you're getting involved into the overall software development life cycle, as well as ensuring that your end users have the best experience, right? Using the whatever tools or technologies your company is serving to your customers.
Okay. So you've also held leadership positions across numerous organizations. Can you share a key learning from your early days that continues to influence how you approach your role as a tech leader today?
Right. So it happened, in my case, it happened more like, naturally, where, initially I never wanted to become a manager or a leader, right? I felt that there is a lot I can learn or contribute to on the technology side. And then it became more like, natural career progression where I started liking even the leadership role, where in the leadership role, you foresee what can come. You can define your strategy and roadmap and then work towards that. At the same time, you also have a team to manage the overall workforce, as well as the type of work or the amount of work. So initially it was, transition is always difficult. Any transition that you do, in my opinion, whether it is career or anything on the technology side, personal side, any transition, right? So it was not easy for me as well, where I felt that, hey, if I'm an individual contributor, I do whatever I want to do or however I want to do. But then being a manager or a leader, it is like getting things done by someone else, right? There you may not have a lot of control, right? Because you can do only so much, right? If your team, for whatever reason, is not able to work or not able to produce enough outcome, you may feel frustrated, but you may not have a lot of control, right? It may improve over a period, right? Maybe with the help of the training, guidance, mentorship. But at that time, you may feel frustrated if you have not experienced that. And that was my case as well, where when I transitioned from individual contributor to a manager or leadership role.
As a leader, you are responsible not only for yourself, but for your team also. So I guess that.
That's right.
That takes a... Okay. So can you tell us what a typical day in your life looks like as a tech leader? How does it
look? So if I divide my bandwidth, right, roughly it is, I would say, 40 to 50% of the time into more of a strategy and building the roadmap, right? As a leader, you are thinking, you need to have a forward looking that, hey, where do I see this organization, say, 6 months from or 1 year from now, right? Or 6 months, 1 year, 2 years down the line, how it is going to be, how your users are going to experience, how your users are going to react, what your users' expectations are, and things like that, right? So you need to have that forward-looking thinking, and so that's how my 40 to 50% of my bandwidth is used for more of a forward-looking, right? How it is going to be. It could be even, even for a short term, like 1 month from now, and things like that. Then the rest of 50 to 60% is primarily about, one is, of course, the mentoring the team, building the team, having the right structure, hiring the right people, and that's how, and at the same time, maybe brainstorming any ideas, thoughts within your peer group, with your team, and then coming up with the conclusion that, okay, if this is the roadmap that we have, this is how it is going to be, right? And then you close that particular cycle. I mean, you have the roadmap in the place, which is thinking about what is the problem that you're going to solve for. And then how you are going to solve for that, you need to have, I think enough discussion, enough brainstorming within the team, outside the team, with your peer group and things like that.
So can you walk us through any of these projects that you brainstormed for, where you implemented innovative DevOps or InfoSec practices, and explain how it delivered measurable improvements for the business overall?
Yeah, so this was at one of the companies where I worked in the past. This was primarily for the security function. We were building it from scratch that, hey, let's have the InfoSec, proper InfoSec team structure within the organization. And what if you have the security built in the pipeline, right? Anything and everything that you deploy for your consumers are safe and secure, right? So with that thought, the idea was, can we build a very lean team, right? And again, if you think about DevOps or the InfoSec team, these are central teams in any organization, right? Where you may have a lot of teams dependent on you. Now, if you have that typical structure where it is like hub and spoke structure, you may have a lot of people just waiting for your team to respond or to act on a particular request. I felt that, hey, let's change that, right? What if we want to decentralize that activity where we empower people, especially if you think about this customer, right? As a DevOps or as a InfoSec expert, your customers are typically your dev teams, right? Where they may be waiting for you to either provision the infrastructure or deploy a particular code or things like that, right? Or even ensuring that, whatever the dev teams have developed, they're all safe and secure to be deployed to production. What if that part for the day-to-day activities, if you can decentralize that activity where you're empowering your customers, and in most cases, as I said, it is your dev teams, so that you can reduce these transactions on a daily basis. Once that is done, and then those transactions are, if you see, it is more of an operational in nature, right? So in this case, the idea was the project that I'm going to talk about. We built a central security team to ensure that, one, there are policies defined, right? And with that policy, you say that, okay, hey, this is what we have agreed for. Based on that policy, then you decentralize some of the activities. Like, for example, it could be as simple as creating or provisioning the infrastructure for a particular team. Now, what if there is a self-serve tool and your dev teams are using that tool to provision the infrastructure, of course, within enough boundaries and guardrails and things like that. But then the idea was, can we decentralize? That way we can free up the bandwidth within the DevOps team or the InfoSec team, right? And that became a huge success because, one, on the requester side from the dev team, they felt that, hey, I don't have to now wait for someone to act on this particular request. I'm now empowered enough to do this activity on my own. And I give, one analogy that, if you recall, around 25-30 years ago, even in our country, when you needed to do any banking transaction, you used to go to a bank and then do the transaction. And bank said that, hey, don't come to me for, say, withdrawing money. Go to ATM, and it is a self-serve machine, and you do the transaction. But if you want, when you come to me, then you come to me for something that machine cannot do. Like, for example, you may want to apply for your home loan, whatever, right? Something other than the day-to-day operational activities. Very similar approach that we applied for this particular central team, where you are not creating unnecessary dependency on you or anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, more like an operational work that is decentralized, and your customers are empowered to take that decision or use those tools and technologies.
Great to hear that. Okay. So following up to that question, you've worked with startups and established enterprises within different industries in various capacities. How does the tech adoption mindset differ for these types of organizations? Is there a difference between how startups adopt it and how bigger corporates do?
Yeah, so there is a lot of difference between how a startup operates and a well-established enterprise operates. So typically in larger enterprises or any well-established enterprises, adoption of any tools and technologies, it's not very rapid. It may take a little longer, right, to adopt any particular tools or technologies. For one reason, typically enterprise, they do not take any risk of adopting something which is very new and not proven yet, right? A lot of times you see something very, very new and you may feel that, hey, should I adopt it? Do I have a need to adopt it? And if the answer is no, then why to adopt it? And typically that's the mindset in typically any large enterprise or established enterprises. At the same time, when you go and work with startup is like, let's experiment. If it doesn't work, we'll fail fast and hop on to something else. But let's experiment and see how quickly we can do it. You may not even have a well-established process as well in startups, because it's like everyone works in more like innovative mindset. That, hey, I will quickly test it. If it doesn't work, then I'll find something else. That mindset is completely different in an enterprise or established enterprise. And then there are various other things similar to that, where even on the people side, right? In startup, you might have heard that people work like donkey hours. Not always, but in many cases, right? Because there, you are trying to work on something very new. You do not even know whether this is going to be successful or not successful, and so you give a lot of effort to make sure that, hey, I quickly experiment this, will test it out. If it doesn't work, then I'll do something else. There again, you may have a lot of curiosity and you may give a lot of effort as well. I'm talking about the startup mindset or startup culture. And these are my kind of learnings or findings so far.
So in bigger enterprises, the process is usually set, whereas in a startup, they're more dynamic to see what works, what doesn't. So, yeah.
That's right.
Sanjay, you've received awards like the CEO Club Award and Leader of the Year. What would you like to say about your specific leadership style, and how do you nurture top talent, especially in today's fast-evolving world of technology?
Sure. So my way of working is, as I said, I try to do more decentralization. Again, focus is on a lot of automation. When it comes to even the team building, right? My style is like you empower people, right? At the same time, you give them enough direction. You do not tell them this is how you should be doing. At leadership level, you define the problem statement, what we should be working on, how we should be doing it. Ideally, you should leave it to the team to come back with the ideas or approach. And then that way, I have seen the adoption is higher, because if you give even the plan, defining the problem statement and even that, hey, here are the 10 things that you need to work on, or 10 steps that you need to execute, that may not be as successful as compared to when you challenge your team to for them to come back with the idea or approach. So this is how I work. And the second thing is, in my opinion, there is nothing called failure, right? Especially in the world of technology. You always tried something and now you know that did not work, right? So it's not a failure, but it's a learning, right? And with the learning, now you know enough that if something did not work, you're not going to try it again, right? You will try something else. So to me, it's not a failure, right? But rather a learning. So these are some of the leadership traits that I apply, and that has been working for me.
You've also been a key voice in the DevSecOps community for a while now. What's the most unexpected lesson or piece of advice you received from someone within the community that has stayed with you?
Yeah, so community gives you a lot of learning, by the way. One is, with the community, it's the power of many. In my opinion, right? You may get stuck with something, right? Or you may have some idea which you want to validate with your peer leadership team outside of your organization, just to see whether they have experienced something very similar, and get their kind of inputs and kind of unbiased input. if you ask for very honest feedback or very unbiased feedback or input, you may get that in many cases, right? In some cases you may not get that, but in many cases, at least it has worked for me, where you want to quickly validate your thoughts, you want to just bounce off some ideas, get that validated, or get inputs from your peer group outside, your organization, from the community. So to me, it has been very, very helpful, working with a lot of leaders within the community, learning and contributing. I mean, that is how the community is, right? That is how community operates, where one, of course, you learn a lot of stuff. At the same time, you give back, right? That, hey, I have done something in this way, and you spread that out, and maybe someone may benefit from your thoughts and ideas.
Give you a varied perspective that you probably wouldn't think in your.
Correct.
Sanjay, you're also involved with the Green Computing Foundation, which is a non-profit organization focused on fostering sustainable IT practices. How important is sustainability in tech today, and what steps can the IT industry take to reduce its environmental impact?
Yeah, so I think this is, in my opinion, very important because if you see now, right, especially in last 5 years or so, the adoption of tech has gone really, really high, right? And now you see, whether it is cloud providers, whether it is data center providers, the footprint of the infrastructure has gone up significantly. And in last 1 year or so, especially with bit of adoption of AI, and now industry is talking a lot about Gen AI and whatnot, right? I think the footprint is going to go multifold with the more adoption of AI, because AI needs more compute power. And with more compute power, of course, in a way you are damaging your environment for sure, right? So in my opinion, unless we start thinking about how we can have a positive impact, or how we can reduce maybe the carbon footprint or optimize the usage and all that, I think for the next generation, it is going to be problematic, in my opinion. So just like anything else that we do in our life, like reducing the use of the polythene, for example, right, to even adoption of tools, technologies, or any of the even the gadgets, electronic gadgets, I think we need to be a little conscious now, unless it becomes too late, right? And then we take any action. I think as industry practitioners or leaders, I think it is the right time for us to start thinking about, you may not adopt a lot of things immediately, but start thinking about how it is impacting the environment. I mean, you may have seen at least the electronics items, right? It has a star mark, which is how it is using the energy, right? Similarly, imagine if a computer or a laptop or any hardware gives you that anything that you provision in, say, a cloud environment, and it tells you that, hey, this provisioning is going to emit so much carbon dioxide, right, or so much carbon. How can I optimize it to reduce the carbon footprint? So I think there is a lot to be done, but I think we need to, as a practitioner, we need to start thinking about how we can optimize and contribute to the environment.
Appreciate that you see the bigger picture that tech has on the environment, and you're taking footsteps in the right direction. So the next question is, we're seeing rapid changes in AI, ML, automation, and cloud technologies as of 2024. How do you see these trends reshaping DevSecOps over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, very good question in my opinion. I think this is still very early, but what I foresee is that I think the adoption of AI, ML, is going to help, especially the DevSecOps, in a larger way. In my opinion, anything operational, right, any day-to-day activities that we do as human, I think that is going to transform in my opinion, right? And with the adoption of AI or Gen AI or anything as such, this will have a larger impact, where as a human being, we may not be doing the repeated stuff again and again, right? That is something machine is going to take care of it. I mean, if you can correlate with the driverless car, autonomous cars and all that, it's nothing but as a human, if you are still driving the car, right? Someone maybe thought about it that, hey, it's a very boring job, right? We do not apply our brains. As a human beings, what if we are given a task where we constantly apply our brains, right? And the operational part is taken care of by machines. In my opinion, AI or Gen AI or AI ML is something very similar, where anything that we have been doing repeatedly over a period, what if that is taken over by machines? And as human beings, think about the larger picture, think about more innovative ideas, which maybe machine cannot think of, right? And then we kind of delegate our day-to-day activities to machines. So this is, in my simple talk, this is what I can think of.
Like optimizing the human brain.
Yes.
The manual tasks that it can get.
Right.
Okay. So Sanjay, for any budding DevOps and InfoSec professionals who would aspire to be in a role or in a position as you, what, according to you, are the top 3 skills that they should focus on developing today to thrive in the future?
So few things. By the way, I do not talk about the tools or technologies on this side. I mean, in my opinion, tools and technologies is more of a how. I mean, if you want to do something, which is a what you want to do, then how you want to do the tools and technology helps, right? So how comes in the second step, but thinking about what part, right? What you should be thinking about, what we should be, always think about where I can make things simpler or easier, right? So that's my one piece of advice on how you can optimize, how you can improve things, how you can add value instead of just using a particular tools and technologies. As I said, tools and technology is important, but that's the how part. So thinking about a bigger picture, thinking about the what part. So that's number one. Second, always think that tools and technologies are very short-lived, right? I mean, as I said, when I started my career, whatever tools and technologies were there at that time, none of them exist today. Even if they exist, no one is using it today, right? So that's going to evolve over a period. What will remain same with you is your curiosity, always to see how you can do it in a better way, right? The same thing, you can do it in a better way. So have that level of, I think, curiosity and make yourself relevant with a lot of adoption of tools, technologies is what I feel is the right thing to do.
Okay, Sanjay, this is a surprise question which you're not aware of, but I'd just like to ask you, in your position, I'm sure you have so much on your plate. So how do you balance between your personal and professional life?
Yeah, I think that's another great question. To me, it's like, prioritize things, right? Something which is maybe in your personal life has a higher priority than something on your work side. Have that priority list, open and be very clear with that, right? If you're compromising on your life, personal life, your relationship or whatever it is, right? By, maybe spending a lot of time on the work side, that's not at all good, right? So have that clear priority defined both on the work side as well as on the personal side. And sometimes you may have to do a trade-off, right? Like, sometimes work may take precedence, right? Because it's a business, right? We are talking about, you're committed to do something and you may have to compromise something on the personal side. At the same time, maybe something which is you may have planned for your personal side, right? And that is maybe higher priority than something on your work side. So you may have to do the trade-off. At the same time, again, doing a trade-off is not like I just decide and it happens, right? You may have to work with your stakeholders, especially in your work setting. So work with and be very open and candid with your stakeholders, your leadership team about your thought process. Get that validated, in my opinion. I think that's another important advice that I have.
Okay. So Sanjay, at the end of the podcast, it was great having you here and lovely knowing all your thoughts on within the technology space and as a leader in the tech space. So thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure.
No, thank you, Pavleen. Thanks for the thought-provoking questions. Really great set of questions. So thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Thank you.